Have you ever stepped outside to your own driveway, only to find your car, the one you poured every ounce of hard work, sweat, and savings into, just gone? Not taken by some masked thief sneaking around in the dead of night, not mistakenly hauled away by a tow truck, but straight up stolen by the spoiled daughter of your entitled neighbor. That was the nightmare I got hit with. And it all began the moment my Tesla vanished right before my eyes. I live in one of those neat suburban neighborhoods where people act like they follow the rules, except for one family, Karen and her daughter Brittany. Now, when I say spoiled, I don't just mean your average teen whining about not getting the newest iPhone. I'm talking about a girl who strutted around like the entire street was her personal property. And her mother? She only fueled the fire. Their unofficial family motto might as well have been, "Rules don't apply to us." That day, I'd parked my Tesla in my driveway as usual. It's my pride and joy, not just transportation, but proof of everything I'd worked so hard to achieve. I had spent the morning washing it until it gleamed under the sun, then headed inside to grab some lunch. Barely 10 minutes later, I heard the low growl of an engine that made my stomach tighten. I dashed outside, and there it was, my Tesla, rolling down the street, Brittany behind the wheel. At first, I thought maybe my eyes were playing tricks on me. But no. She was right there, grinning through the glass like she owned the place, even waving at me as if this was some joyride she had every right to take. My jaw nearly hit the ground. I yelled her name, but she stomped the accelerator, tires squealing like she was auditioning for Fast and Furious. Fueled by rage, I stormed to Karen's front door and pounded on it. She opened up, sipping her iced coffee like she was enjoying a lazy Sunday. When I demanded to know why her daughter just stole my car, she actually rolled her eyes. "Relax," she said. "She's just taking it for a test drive. Don't be so dramatic. A test drive? What did she think this was? A dealership?" My Tesla wasn't some toy to be borrowed for her brat's amusement. I told her flat out this was theft, no sugarcoating. Karen just smirked. "Oh, please. Brittany deserves nice things. You should feel honored she even wants to drive your car." That was the moment I realized this wasn't just a case of poor parenting. This was a full-blown declaration of war. Waiting for Brittany to return felt like an eternity, though it was probably 15 minutes at most. I paced the driveway, my hands shaking, trying to understand how anyone could feel so entitled. And then she came barreling back, not easing in, but slamming the brakes so hard the tires shrieked and burned rubber into the street. She hopped out like she'd just won a trophy. "Nice ride," she smirked, tossing her hair. "Handle's smooth, but acceleration's kinda weak. I'll need something faster when I get mine." I was stunned at her audacity. My Tesla, still humming from the abuse, sat there with dust kicked up over its once perfect shine. I stepped forward, ready to let her have it, but before I could even open my mouth, Karen sauntered out of her house, smug as ever. "See?" she said proudly. "No harm done." Brittany was careful. "Careful," I snapped, pointing to the black skid marks gouged into the pavement and the scrape on my rim. That wasn't careful. That was reckless. But Karen just folded her arms, staring me down like she dared me to challenge her. "Don't be ridiculous," she shot back. "You men always overreact about cars. It's just a machine." It's not like she stole jewelry or something important. That was the breaking point. I told her straight, what Brittany did was theft, and I had every right to call the police. Instantly, Karen's smug smile darkened into a scowl. She leaned in, her voice low but dripping with venom. "You wouldn't dare. Do you know who we are in this neighborhood? We're respected. If you stir this up, you'll regret it." That was all I needed to hear. They weren't just spoiled. They were bullies used to pushing everyone into silence. Not me. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911 for the first time. Karen's eyes widened, her facade cracking. Brittany tried to brush it off, muttering, "This is stupid. They'll never believe you." But I saw the flicker of panic in her face. The operator believed me, though, and a few minutes later, a patrol car rolled into the cul-de-sac, washing the street in flashing lights. The whole block seemed to freeze. Curtains twitched as nosy neighbors peeked out, eager for the drama. I stood in my driveway, my Tesla still cooling from its test drive, while Karen and Brittany whispered to each other like guilty conspirators. The officer stepped out, tall, serious, adjusting his belt with authority. "Who made the call?" he asked. I raised my hand, my phone still clutched in my fist. But before I could even explain, Karen jumped in, plastering on her sweetest voice. "Officer, this is all a big misunderstanding. My daughter just wanted to see how the car drives. Our neighbor here is just being dramatic. It wasn't theft, just a harmless spin around the block." Karen's voice dripped with false sweetness as she tried to wave it all away. The officer turned to me. "Is this true?" "No, sir," I said firmly. "She took my vehicle without permission. That's theft, plain and simple. And she left damage on the tire rim." Karen gave a loud, mocking snort, rolling her eyes like I'd just delivered the punchline to a bad joke. "Oh, please." "He's exaggerating. You really think a sweet young girl like Brittany could steal? She's not some criminal. She was just curious. Everyone here knows us, but the officer wasn't buying it." He turned his sharp gaze on Brittany. "Did you take the vehicle without permission?" Brittany crossed her arms, tilting her head with that smug teenage smirk. "So what if I did? It's not like he was even using it. Besides, rules don't apply to me." The silence that followed was so heavy it made the air feel thick. The officer's brow twitched, his jaw visibly tightening. "Excuse me?" he asked. I said. Brittany repeated slowly, as if she were explaining to a toddler. "Rules don't apply to me." "My mom says so." Karen immediately jumped in, hands flailing in damage control mode. What she meant was, this doesn't need to turn into a big deal. She's a minor. She didn't hurt anyone. We're willing to just forget this whole silly thing, but the officer shook his head firmly. "No, ma'am. Taking a vehicle without permission is a big deal. Minor or not, that's a crime. And her attitude right now isn't helping." Karen's tone sharpened like broken glass. "Do you have any idea who we are? We're respected members of this community. If you so much as lay a hand on my daughter, you'll regret it." The officer didn't so much as blink. Calmly, he raised his radio and called something back to dispatch. Then he fixed his eyes on Brittany. "Miss, you're coming with me!" Karen's scream tore through the cul-de-sac like a siren. The second those words left his mouth, the entire neighborhood seemed to shift. Her smug superiority cracked into raw panic as she lunged forward, grabbing Brittany's arm. "You can't take her!" She didn't do anything wrong. "This is harassment!" But the officer remained steady. "Ma'am, your daughter admitted to taking the vehicle without permission." "That's unauthorized use of a motor vehicle. Step back before you escalate this further." Brittany rolled her eyes, still pretending she was untouchable. "Whatever. I'll be out in 5 minutes. Jail's for losers, not me." She actually laughed as the officer turned her around, the metallic click of handcuffs echoing through the cul-de-sac. Karen shrieked, stomping her heels into the pavement. "You'll regret this." "I'll call the mayor. I'll sue. You can't treat us like this." But this time, no one listened. Neighbors who normally avoided conflict had stepped outside, arms crossed, nodding as if to say, "Finally." Someone put them in their place. A couple even whispered to me, "About time. They've been terrorizing this block for years." The officer opened the back door of the patrol car and guided Brittany inside. Her cocky grin slipped for the first time when she realized this wasn't just a slap on the wrist. This was real. She slumped against the seat, pouting, banging her head lightly against the glass. "Mom, do something." "They can't do this to me!" Karen, red-faced and trembling with rage, spun on me. "You think you've won? You think you're some kind of hero? This isn't over. We'll ruin you for this." But for the first time since they moved in, I didn't feel intimidated. I stood my ground and simply said, "Karen, rules apply to everyone, even your daughter." The officer drove off with Brittany in the back seat, her entitled laughter silenced at last. The whole street watched as the patrol car disappeared, leaving Karen standing there alone, fuming, shaking, but powerless. Later that evening, the gossip spread like wildfire. At the station, Brittany had tried pulling her rules don't apply stunt on the officers, too. Spoiler, it didn't work. She spent the night in a holding cell, her very first taste of real consequences. The next day, Karen stormed around town trying to spin the story, but it was pointless. Everyone knew the truth. Her daughter had been arrested, and there was no covering that up. As for me, my Tesla survived. Just a scraped rim, and my nerves shot to pieces. But the real satisfaction? Knowing that, for once, the so-called untouchable neighbors had finally been touched by reality. When you cross the line, you don't get special treatment. Rules do apply, especially when handcuffs and jail bars are involved. And if you enjoyed hearing about this showdown, don't forget to hit that like button. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And of course, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next crazy Karen story.